Hi everyone, this is my second attempt doing this video. It's been one of those weird, stressful day. It's not personal, it's not emotional, it's just business stuff. And it's nothing compared to some of the challenges that I know some of you must be facing this month. So mine is a minor irritant, but it has been quite stressful nevertheless. So I would like to apologize in advance if I sound a little off. But with the Curious Oracle that I recently revealed about 2 weeks ago when I first received it, I think a lot of people like that deck, and rightly so, because the art's beautiful, the system's novel and refreshing, and it's different. It's Holly's own system. The artwork's great, the cardstock is really good, or have I said that? It's just wonderful to touch, wonderful to shovel, wonderful to look at, and intriguing to work with. So attention have returned to her Incidental Tarot. I can only speak for myself personally that when I talk about the Curious Oracle, I always alluded to the Incidental Tarot because this is the more known work of hers thus far. So this was originally, like it says there, the 365 days of art, I think, where participants are challenged or encouraged to produce one art piece, one drawing a day for a whole year. And so all her story is on her website. So there it is, ravenandrosearts.com. She has the Fortune Fountain is her current Oracle Decks website. So the Incidental Tarot has its own website. The A Curious Oracle, the recent Oracle that she produced, have another website, Fortune Fountain, and then there is the that one as well. So I think, I'm not quite sure, I haven't really checked all of the websites out, but I think she structured her online presence a certain way. So this is from her Etsy shop, and as I've mentioned with the Curious Oracle, as a producer and as an independent deck maker, she made a business decision, an operational decision, that international shipment can only be done tracked and insured, and therefore that costs $35 no matter what. So that means 50 New Zealand dollars per deck, a deck that costs, I think, either as much or less than that actually. So with her decks, as with Robert M. Places and some other creators and producers and sellers that I know, for someone who live where I am, it is only economical, it only makes economical sense if you actually purchase more than one. Otherwise it does not make sense because the shipment is way more expensive than the deck. So I'll flip through the deck first. I'll put this aside for now. And so the cardstock's great. The Riffle Shuffler will like it, and the Overhand Shuffler will like it too, because it's flexible enough, it's thin enough, but it's not flimsy, which is important. And then of course it's high sheen. It isn't shiny, it isn't glossy, but it's high sheen. I've noticed some damages to the cards already. I have not opened this for almost 2 years. So since I received it, I have not opened it until, like, a couple of days ago. So there is a bit of a damaged card there, which is a pity. But I might ask Holly for a replacement card. That's 2 extra cards, the Labyrinth and Ariadne. I know there's a story about Ariadne and I can't remember. I have to I must say that when I first worked with this deck, I didn't really do too much research. I just went straight to working with the deck, and it's quite friendly to doing so, even if you're not in full knowledge of all the particulars, which is why the book is really good to have, but it's not a must, I don't think, but it's really good to have because it gives you not only an insight to the creative process, to Holly's story of creation, as well as the story of each cards and each choices of symbols and all the usual stuff. Cream colored page is very pleasant to the eyes. It's dated so that you are taken to this process of creation, so that you're engaged in the deck not only with the story of the card, the story of the scenes, but also Holly's own story of as an artist, as a tarot reader, which I quite like, because my view of tarot is very much in terms of universal and collective unconscious. That means shared myths, shared stories, and so I am very much partial to decks that have, on top of the story of the things presented in the cards, but also that other layer of story on top or around, or the creation of the card, that is a story of the creator. This is the Red King, is the Magician. Again, there's a story about the Red King that I'm not familiar with, that I can easily Google. The High Priestess is pretty traditional. I would like to show you the back. I had another, I did tell you that I have to make economical sense, I bought two. So one I've trimmed, and because it was the first time I've trimmed a deck ever, I was using the Fisker slider blade, and there is a guide that was made of a wire that goes where the cut's going to be, but because I was new to the device, I was looking at the wrong thing. So I thought I was looking at cutting this, and as soon as I slide, I realized I was cutting way deeper into the borders, and I've lost that whole chunk of yellow. And once I've done that, the fate of the whole deck was sealed, so the whole deck had to be trimmed off completely, leaving just the bottom. And so the back became like just that one there, just that, you know, I've lost the two borders, but it was very nice. It was like a small, and I worked with it a lot, and it helped me in that period. And then I arrived at the period where I just simply feel like my journey with the deck was done. And so I traded it with Soren from Norse Pagan Tarot Witch with the Guardian Angel deck that I've recently made a video of. This is the Hierophant. It's been replaced with a more neutral building that is still that is still saying the same message about tradition, established tradition, and accumulation of knowledge and that sort of thing, authority, etc. And that's pretty traditional. The Griffin is the Strength card in this deck. The Blue Buddha is the Hermit in this deck. Again, not too hard to make the connection or the leap why this is the Hermit and why that's Strength, but reading the book definitely will give you an extra layer of understanding. But as I said, it's not completely necessary to, because I jumped straight to this deck immediately, and this is in my early days of reading tarot, and so I find this deck to be very friendly, to be easy to use. Triskelion is the Wheel of Fortune. Justice, the Eclipse is the Hangman. I quite like that take on the Hangman, because, let's face it, our meaning of the Hangman have moved so far away from the original Tarot de Marseille, which the Hangman is basically a traitor who's hung upside down as a punishment. And then it kind of evolved to Odin, and I think, was it St. Peter who's crucified upside down? I can't remember. That kind of... so it's about something else now from the original. This is Temperance. Polarity. Chimera is the Devil. Phoenix is a Tower, and this is probably the only major arcana card, or one of two or three cards that I feel slightly, I don't know, uncertain about, because Phoenix, it's rising from the ashes, from utter destruction, from utter death. I always associate Phoenix with death rather than with the Tower. Tower is an upset in the world as we see it, an upset in our own structure of consciousness and our own presumption of reality. It isn't so much a destruction of everything. So the Tower to me is a micro thing, and for me, Phoenix is very much about the macro death, not the micro death. This is the Grail is a star, so that's pretty easy to make out. La Lune, the moon. It's interesting that the moon is like that. You still have that path. You still have that too, you You don't have the crustacean, you don't have the tooth tower, but it's to me it's okay for my way of reading. That's the sun. The awakening is judgment. I know a lot of people have problem with the word judgment, but from my very comfortable, very liberal, very much non-practicing Catholic upbringing, I understand the story of judgment as a story of resurrection, really. And so if death is the death and rebirth of the being, to me, judgment card has always been about entering the death and rebirth of a new world. So resurrection into a new world has always been judgment. So I don't have any issue with the word judgment itself. I don't feel judged. I don't feel, as I said, I my religious upbringing was pretty relaxed, so I don't feel judged. I hardly ever feel judged, to be honest, and I know that's very fortunate. That's the world. And so what I like about this deck is that it's the aces are all keys, and then as you can see later, the tens are all doors. So there is that sort of message and implication of the key opening to a door, and the door is opening you to the next level, the next world behind that door. And the key, I mean, it sounds pretty self-explanatory. I don't know what else to say. Key, door, 1, 10. And it just, for me, it linked the ones of each suit to the tens in a way that I hadn't really seen before, by the simple act of the depiction of the aces as key and the tens as door. So I wanted to say that it's pippish. I wouldn't want to say it unillustrated, because it is obviously illustrated, with the moon and the... So it is perhaps not scenic. There's no scene as such, or semi-scenic, like the Four of Arrows. It's so simple, and yet it worked, with the... It could convey a certain sense. The Five of Arrows, the arrow's the one, so the fire. That sense of competition, struggle, and that sense of confrontation that give birth to new skills, to new development. Star, fire. It's a good thing, isn't it? Fire and star. Six of Triumph. Just a simple ribbon here and garland. I personally feel that convey triumph very well, and yet it's so simple, and I really like that. That is very much Crowley's Thothish. Again, really gathering momentum. It's all pointing at this. It feels like this gathering surge, this gathering wave, gathering... the sense is conveyed very well through something so simple, I found. That's the door. You see what I mean? It's perhaps it's pretty obvious to a lot of people who've read tarot for like 20-30 years, but for someone who at the time I was kind of like, I don't know, 6 months or something, you see that really it's like they say pictures says 1,000 words, right? So that connection between the tens of every suit and the aces makes the tens less foreboding, and it makes the aces feels more potent. So this is going to be the equivalent of the page. Now, I have said many times that it is potentially unwise to impose Rider-Waite-Smith's take on quartz into quartz that's been specifically reconstructed based on someone's particular worldview that they're trying to present as. We could potentially be in danger of losing a whole worldview, a whole fresh worldview that's presented by an interesting deck like this if we impose a traditional court onto. But looking at the sort of sense of movement in the archer and the passivity of the messenger, and then there is queen and king, and so I could then conclude that this is more the king, queen, knight, page arrangement rather than Crowley's, say, knight, queen, prince, and princess. So based on the king and queen here, I take that the archer here is the knight energy, that active, young energy. This is yin, passive sort of sense of the messenger is reading that, while that arrow, the arrow is the one, the staff, fire, by the way, and that is movement. That arrow is about to go off into the distance. This one's almost like it's at the receiving end of whatever message, or at a point of delivery. This is where she's about to deliver that message. Put that in there, and so it's that sort of standing still before the action, which is the yin, the queen, the king. And then the roses are the chalices, or the water. Again, pip-ish, semi-scenic. 4 of water, 5 of water. It's quite simple, you know. It's drooping 2 and 3's up. The 6 sort of looking this way towards the past, the roots, and that one going that way. 7 of roses, up in the clouds, variety of choices, but still rooted down. 8 of roses, 8 of cups, looking towards the future, looking ahead towards the bigger picture, and the somberness of the white roses. It's not negative, it's just, it's done, we're moving on, we're looking forward, and that star is calling, and it's just so somber. It's a mood. I personally get the mood, and I quite like it, because I have decided I don't read pips. So I've put my Marseille style reading attempt behind me. 9 of roses, heart intertwined, everything connect together, and unison, and then of course the door. And again, I just saw there's already a damage there, and I will ask if Holly is willing to give me a replacement card. She so far have been quite great with the 2 cards. That looks a bit weird with my that's the muse again. That yin yang, passive active, the muse inspire. You have your muse to create, and once you create, you express it in the bard. So that whole, you know, passive yin, active yang, that sort of seed, realizing sort of sense of it, and then the realization of it just coming out of that growth, and then the, you know, the maturing process and nurturing around the queen, and then that execution, realization of a higher order of things in the kings. And the quills are the swords, the air, you know, the pen is mightier than the sword, etc., etc. So 4, 5, 6 of swords, 6 of quills. Sorry, my setup here is actually, I am literally crouching over my iPad, and my back is killing me. I'm sitting on the floor. 9 of quills. So there's the door again. And then this is another interesting one. I found the courts to be interesting, and I am going to attempt a series on courts of a variety of decks. So again, the oracle, the passive, the more active, the alchemist, when, you know, you finally change, I don't know, metal to gold or something. And here is more that sort of garnering message from the other world, and this is actively manifesting the skills and whatever the other world have to teach us into something in this world. The interesting thing is that in the Tarot of Delphi, which is my main deck for now, amongst 3 other, I'm working with 3 main decks: Delphi, Urban Tarot, and Marielle at the moment. And the oracle is the highest of the 4 face cards, which is the equivalent of the court cards in the suit of sword. So if you recall, I have a video on it, and I've also blogged. You can check out my blog about that. I didn't think I managed to talk about Delphi on YouTube, because talking about it I found is quite hard. When I have a lot of thoughts and a lot of things to say, I'm better at writing them down rather than saying it out loud like this. But the oracle is the highest of the 4. So there is the, if I recall, there is the devotee of sword, there is the artisan, and then the hero, and then there is the enchantress of sword. And the enchantress of sword, which is the highest in the 4 of the 4 cards, was the oracle. And so that form of attunement with the divine, where you tune in your intellect and your mind and your air self into the world beyond, is the ultimate of the four cards. Here, it is the beginning, interestingly. It is the beginning, and then after the oracle, came the alchemist, and then the queen and the king. So I thought that was quite interesting. It is possible that the oracle here might not refer to a person. It could possible that the oracle here refer to a message that is waiting to be interpreted, a message that is waiting for us to take whatever we could from, while in the Tarot of Delphi, perhaps the oracles speak of that person who finally have the skill and the attunement and the refinement mentally to understand what the oracle is trying to say. So that's possible. So I probably would take it like that, because here it's perhaps, an oracle will remain silent unless you have the skill to interpret them. So that's one way of looking at it. That's the alchemist, the queen and the king, and then we come to the ace. The oak is the coins, the earth, 2, 3 of oaks. You know how it sort of blend together like that. You work together towards something. The 4 of oaks, that closing into a space. Give that sense of 5 of oaks. 5 of pentacles is usually with the 2 figure outside the church in the cold. So I love how elegantly simple the expression of the cards are here. 6 of oaks, that 6 of pentacle, you can give, you are in a position to give 7 of oaks, where it's sort of just waiting for it is in a state where it's staying put, it's waiting to grow, it's just in the making. In the Thoth system, it is a point of saturation, which is very interesting. We'll talk about that some other time. The 8 of oaks, more pippish than others. I mean, this is probably the more pip-ish. It's kind of pippish throughout, but it's less indicated, I suppose, in terms of illustration around it. As a 9, where everything's again sort of 9 of pentacles, self-sufficient, growth, independence, all linked together, fulfillment, sense of rootedness, groundedness, etc., bloom, blah blah blah, and then the door, and then off you go to another thing over there. Again, passive, active, the steward. You're simply a steward. You keep an eye, you guard, you take care. You're a steward of this, and that is the builder. You take what you have, and you're not simply a guard or a steward of it. You actively use it, you actively put it to growth and development as a builder. The oak, that's, you can take the oak tree and you build it, and you make all sorts of things from the oak tree. So you don't simply keep an eye on the oak tree and make sure that it blooms, make sure that it's not eaten by creepy crawlies, or my plant knowledge is shocking. So but you know what I mean. You keep guard to make sure that that tree is well, that tree is producing, and then you just keep an eye on it. Here you take the next step, you take it further, and then of course the queen and the king. Okay, so the cardstock is like so. It is quite smooth. Yeah, it's quite smooth. It shuffles beautifully. But remember, if you trim this, and a lot of decks are like that, once you trim the edges, it becomes different. The whole card becomes quite fluffy. While here, it's very waxy, it's very heavy, and it feels like the edges are sealed. And once you cut it, it becomes quite fluffy. It feels like there's a lot of layers and particles or bubbles of air in between the cards as you shuffle them. Quickly, it's 24 minutes already, so that's the book, and it's very good, heavy, good quality book. I think it's about 50 New Zealand dollars by the time it got to me. So I think it's not that cheap. It's like $35 or $30. I can't remember, don't quote me on that. I got this from lulu.com. I was told that it's out of print, and so I think if you message Holly, she could probably I don't know. I'm sure providing PDF to sell is, I'm not quite sure. I'm not quite sure how difficult that's going to be, but it's worth asking, I think. And so let's read it. As I mentioned before, it's not only the story of the cards, of the art, but also her process. And you can see there is the date there. And so I want to read to you very quickly. So it has the title of the card, and then it has how to read it. As in a reading, this is, this is about the lovers itself. And sometimes it is about how she ended up creating a particular image. And then it talks about, in particular, how to read, or how the card can read, or, how you would read the card. And then the keyword, passion, and then reversed. So, for example, let's go to the Triskelion, because I think she shared there how... Quickly... Okay. The Triskelion, also known as Wheel of Fortune, July 29, 2011. And the wheel turns, it turns. The Wheel of Fortune was a trialsome card for me. One I discovered that was endowed with a mind entirely its own. Its image eluded me doggedly over several months of assorted attempts at its design. I thought I had come up with some really brilliant ideas of how to portray the wheel metaphorically. A compass rose, a spinning wheel, but every time I went to sketch it out, I was disappointed in the result. Something was telling me, you just can't force the natural motion of the universe. My desire to manifest the Wheel of Fortune did not in any way influence it to emerge, as I found to my frustration. In the words of author Robert Jordan, the wheel weaves as the wheel wills. One morning, as I was sifting through some old photographs I had pulled to inspire my daily ACEO project, a familiar one caught my eye. It was a Celtic market cross from Scotland, adorned with numerous triple spirals or Triskelions. It was a symbol I was already quite familiar with. In fact, I had drawn several versions of it before to illustrate some of my narrative writing. I was frankly surprised it had never occurred to me before that this potent symbol could represent the Wheel of Fortune. Triskelion is a metaphor for the movement of the world and all its interconnectedness. One cannot force it to turn or even to reveal where in its rotation it is at any given point. Unlike the Red King, who has the force of will and the power of magic to manifest his desires into being, Triskelion represents the unseen manifestations of our thoughts and actions and how they relate to those of the world around us coming forth. Composed in whimsical greens, blues, and purples, the colors of Triskelion reflect the high vibration of its nature. The warm greens represent growth, movement, and prosperity, the blues for peace and tranquility, and violet for the spirit's connection to the universe. Some call it luck, some call it fate. Triskelion is a symbol of trifold pattern of thought, action, and consequence. The number 3 is revered in nearly every spiritual belief system. The threefold law, the triple goddess, maiden, mother, and crone, the Hindu Trimurti, and the Christian Trinity are all sacred reflections of Triskelion. Each wave rolls out of the one before it, and each gives birth to the next in a continual flow of energy. Let me see, where is it? There it is. Each wave rolls out of the one before it, and each gives birth to the next in a continual flow of energy. Birth, life, and death. Growth, prosperity, loss. Misfortune, redemption, destiny. All these patterns embody the essence of Triskelion, the threefold wheel in motion that governs the forces of the universe. Reading Triskelion. Triskelion represents the turning of fate that the querent may have no conscious control over. It is almost always a card of great positivity, signifying good fortune, completion, and gratification. It can also represent unforeseen windfalls and unexpected strokes of luck. The surprise element of this card comes from the fact that we can never have complete knowledge or control over our destiny, and Triskelion appears to let us know that even when we feel out of control in fear, misfortune, or loss, the universe has our back. It tells us that the workings of nature are still mysterious even to the adept, and to trust in its inherently benevolent nature. To define Triskelion in a word: fortune. Reversed: the stalling or impending of advanced plans trying too hard to force change or influence results. Unforeseen consequences, unintended side effects. So that's the Triskelion, and it is on 30 minutes, so I am going to stop there because I could read out the Red King or the Blue Buddha or the Eclipse as the Hang Man, or the... It's just quite fascinating, but it's going to take too long. So maybe on a separate video, if somebody really needs to hear more about the book, or like I did a read through with the Urban Tarot Handbook, I can do that, but on a separate video, providing I have the mental space with all this craziness surrounding my travel and everything else that's been going on around here. But that's the Incidental Tarot. I can highly recommend it, especially from the point of view of it being quite easy to work with, in my opinion, even though it looks pippish. Yeah, and the fact that I actually started my journey with this deck when I was quite new to tarot, and so yeah, oh, yeah, it's been a really weird day, and I had a choice either to drink alcohol, which I don't have at the moment in the house, which is great, well, good for me, or have hot chocolate. I can't exactly caffeinate myself anymore because I'll be more, most of the times I'll be more worked up. I am not much of a drinker. Half a glass of wine and I'm out of action. So I pour a glass of milk, put some cooking dark chocolate in it and a bit of honey, because it's cooking chocolate, it's not actually sweet, and I put it in the microwave, and it's quite yum. And I have this mug here that my ex-husband bought me a while back. That's a vintage New Zealand stamp. Bye everyone.